The path of human thought is not a single road. To understand the world, we have historically relied on two distinct yet complementary orientations: the drive to separate and the drive to connect. We call these analytic reductionism and synthetic holism. While one seeks to break reality down into distinct, manageable parts, the other strives to weave those parts back together into an interconnected whole. Together, they represent the essential toolkit for how we explain, predict, and navigate our complex reality. We can think of these two approaches as being on a shared spectrum. Analytic reductionism acts like a microscope, providing depth and focus. It functions by dividing and classifying, adhering to the principle that the whole is simply the sum of its parts. Conversely, synthetic holism acts like a panorama, providing breadth and context. It connects and unifies, focusing on relations and the emergence of new properties, operating on the principle that the whole is always something more than its parts. Consider the natural sciences. Physics relies on the analytic to find fundamental truths, while biology leans on the synthetic to understand the interconnected web of life. The analytic method, often called arborescent thinking, follows a clear, tree-like structure. It begins by dividing the complex into the simple. Then, it traces those individual parts back to an underlying principle or root. Finally, it explains the object by reducing it to its most fundamental element, or arche. This method is deeply grounded in essentialism, the idea that if we can identify the core, we can understand the entire entity by looking at the branches that grow from it. This analytical mindset has been the engine of modern industrial power. Driven by a desire for absolute clarity, it views the world as a mechanism. The Western tradition, bolstered by a Cartesian perspective, treated nature as an object separate from humanity, which accelerated the scientific and industrial revolutions. In contrast, traditional Eastern thought often retained more holistic and ritualistic frameworks. While this meant a slower adoption of those specific analytical tools, it also prevented the rigid separation between human systems and the natural world that we see in modern industrialized societies. When we look at the exemplars of the analytic approach, we see its immense power. Newtonian mechanics simplified the universe into gravitational laws. Particle physics seeks to isolate the very building blocks of matter, and formal logic creates axiomatic systems to ensure absolute consistency. These methods are supremely effective for quantitative problems. They work perfectly so long as the parts we study do not change their fundamental nature simply because we have separated them from the whole. However, decomposition has inherent limits. Analysis often fails when the act of breaking something apart fundamentally changes its essence. We see this theoretical failure in Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which prove that even the most perfect formal systems cannot be fully self-contained. Practically, we see it in fields like mainstream economics, where the attempt to model financial systems through isolated data points often leads to a failure to predict or resolve the complex, recurring crises that define our modern economy. Consider the pandemic as a case study. The analytic approach was a resounding success in the short term, allowing for rapid viral sequencing and vaccine development. Yet, we faced a significant, holistic gap. While we solved the immediate pathogen, we struggled to address the complex ecological reality that caused the spillover in the first place: factors like deforestation, urban density, and ecological disruption. The science could fix the specific target, but it struggled to grasp the complex system that enabled the catastrophe. We must also recognize the shadows cast by hierarchical, analytic thought. These structures can easily lead to exclusivism and domination. Historically, this was evident in the colonial era, where the drive to categorize and control often ignored the human cost. Today, we face a dangerous contradiction: we attempt to solve ecological and social crises using the exact same industrial, hierarchical tools that caused those crises to begin with. It is a cycle that requires a new perspective. That perspective is the rhizomatic nature of synthetic holism. Unlike a tree with a single root, a rhizome moves in multiple directions, connecting disparate points across boundaries. It prioritizes concrete relationships over abstract, isolated essences. The goal here is panoramic: to recognize that when parts come together, they don't just sit side by side, they change, creating something entirely new through their interaction. The synthetic approach has its own powerful exemplars. Look at Darwin's evolutionary theory. It rejects the notion of fixed, essential types. Instead, it emphasizes transversal connections and the way life emerges through natural selection. In biology, relationship is the primary reality. Similarly, postmodern philosophy encourages us to view the world as an integrated, harmonious rhizome, shifting our attention from what things are in isolation to how they exist in relation to everything else. Our mission for the future is not to reject modernity or analysis, but to harmonize them with synthesis. We need a solution space that encompasses both. By integrating the clarity of analytical tools with the wisdom of holistic thinking, we can finally begin to address the wicked problems of our time: climate change, ecological collapse, and global financial instability not just as technical puzzles, but as the complex, interconnected challenges they truly are. To summarize, we are choosing between two distinct paths. Analysis offers us the tree-like, linear, and distinct, providing short-term clarity and categorization. Synthesis offers us the rhizomatic, multidirectional, and relational, providing long-term harmony and integration. One gives us the precision of the part, the other gives us the meaning of the whole. Recognizing these differences is the first step toward using them in concert. Ultimately, moving closer to the truth requires balance. The path forward is not about abandoning science, but about expanding it. By balancing the power of analysis with the power of synthesis, we can shift our collective worldview from one of cold separation to one of vibrant, vital relation. Only then can we truly understand the world we inhabit and the complex, beautiful systems that sustain us.